Hi, friends. Kyle here. The episode you're about to hear was recorded live on stage at the Global Genes 2019 Rare Patient Advocacy Summit as part of our Two Disabled Dudes Forum. If you are interested in how the Two Disabled Dudes Forum can benefit your group, organization, or company, please visit twodisableddudes.com and click on Forum at the top. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast.
We believe life is about how we react.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's been a really great, busy day, but I hope it's been wonderful for everyone. I want to go ahead and just jump right into our afternoon session, our final session of the day. We have an amazing panel discussion here. During this session, we will listen to meaningful, authentic, and fun conversations about living life to the fullest and beyond your circumstances, no matter what those may be. Please join me in welcoming our hosts, the Two Disabled Dudes, Kyle Bryant and Sean Baumstark.
All right, thank you.
And our panelists, Ono Faber, the founder of RDMD, Nina Nazar, the founder and executive director of the Janssen's Foundation, and Katie Stevens, the executive director of Team Telomere. Thank you.
All right. So we've been doing our weekly podcast for a couple years now. We've had an amazing relationship with Global Genes. In fact, Nicole Boyce, who all of you know, she was our first interview on the podcast, our very first interview, and she was terrible. We were terrible. The show was terrible. We've improved a whole lot then. No, Nicole was amazing. You guys should listen. Episode 6, I believe, is Nicole Boyce. She was amazing. But really, we just want to say thank you to Global Genes. This is an amazing opportunity, and we're going to have some incredible conversations up here. So I'm Kyle Bryant, and when I was diagnosed with the rare disease Friedreich's ataxia, my family and I found out that it would only be a matter of time before I'm in a wheelchair. It would only be a matter of time before I lose all ability to take care of myself. And it would only be a matter of time before my heart fails and I suffer a premature death.
My name is Sean, and when I was diagnosed with FA in 2007, a doctor told me a lot of the same things. My progression may be, although a little bit slower than Kyle's. The doctor told me to start thinking about what I wouldn't be able to do down the road. He told me to stop running, to not run. He told me to maybe swim if I wanted to exercise. He told me to think about installing handrails in my house, or if I was going to go buy a house, to buy only a single story. All of it was advice against what I wouldn't be able to do, so to speak, in terms of the disease. And all of it was just a misplaced prognosis, if you will. At the end of the conversation, it all ended with the most likely outcome of ending life or losing my life sooner than all of my friends. Together, Kyle and I are the Two Disabled Dudes podcast, and we refuse to let our circumstances dictate what we can do or how we can do it.
On our weekly podcast, we interview others with similar mentalities, and we encourage our listeners to do whatever they can to live life beyond their circumstances. We believe that there's hope for the future, and we know that you believe that too.
We've invited 3 powerful advocates to join us on stage and to discuss and showcase the many ways that they've pushed the limits in their own lives and ways they've just lived through every day of their life. So with that, let's meet our panel.
Before we do that, we have a couple of initial questions that we want to ask everyone. So my first question is for Nina. Nina, we know that you were born and you grew up in Dubai. With all the oil money in Dubai, we're just wondering how many of those yachts out there are that you own.
I wish. I'd sell it and get a cure.
I know we know that you're from the Netherlands, but we know you live here in California now, and we were talking about it earlier. We were curious, do you claim the prime minister or the U.S. clown, the president?
Do I what?
Do you claim the prime minister, the Dutch prime minister, or the U.S.?
Which I prefer?
It's not funny anymore because I've already delivered. Ultimately, I don't know. At this point, we don't care what your answer is.
Yeah.
All right, well, moving on. Katie, we know that, Dubai, Netherlands, and you live in Idaho?
Get ready.
So obviously not a whole lot to talk about there.
All right. All right, let's get down to it. Let's talk about real stuff here. So we just want to have everyone introduce themselves. And so, Anna, we want to start with you, and the floor is yours. You can introduce yourself to our audience here.
I'll try to keep it brief. I'm from the Netherlands, right? One thing I think to know about me, since I was a kid, since as long as I can remember, I have never been able to stop myself solving problems. It was always when I ran into something, I started to think about how I could solve it in a structural way and build stuff. So that led me to a life of entrepreneurship. I started an internet company in high school back in '98. This is when internet was coming up, studied architecture because I thought, who's going to be in tech? Like everybody is going to do that, and it was sort of it seemed not like a viable future at the time for me, which is really funny because after my study I found myself back in tech right away. And one of the companies I started in the Netherlands made its way to Berlin and ultimately to Silicon Valley, like the dream of every entrepreneur, I guess. And that was about 5 years ago, and I started losing my hearing slowly for an unknown reason. It started with very distorted sound, and it was scary because I felt something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was, and nobody knew it. The first doctor I talked to, I said, I'm hearing my heartbeat in my ear, and he's like, good, you're still alive. So that was the first, first response to that, and ultimately it turned out I had a tumor on the hearing nerve that was causing it, and later they found more tumors, like one on my second hearing nerve, one in my spine, and they said you have this genetic condition called NF2, and I looked it up. They told me to Google it. I Googled it.
That's
it's
probably
scary.
not the best approach, right?
Well, I don't know. It is of course very scary to read like whatever everybody is dealing with. If you read about it first time on Google, you freak out. But pretty soon after I started thinking again, like, this is another problem to solve, and that is also the type of support I always asked from my friends and family. Like, I don't want you to worry about me. I really don't need you to worry about me. That doesn't help. I want to see, what I can do with this. And it turned out my disease is a rare disease, and as we all know, like there are lots of rare diseases, and a lot of them have similar structural issues and can benefit from the same types of solutions. So that led me to start RDMD, and I'm working on a bunch of other things right now as well. So continuing the problem-solving path.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what exactly does RDMD do?
So it started, I sequenced one tumor that was removed from my brain, and to try to find if we could find an off-label therapy based on the genetic data. And I did that with some friends. So I had the tumor. I asked, hey, can I get it? Can I send it to the lab? And somehow managed to get it done. And that was my starting point. And after that, I organized a hackathon around the data. Google got involved. We had 300 participants, and I was sharing my data. And I tried to get access to more. And I knew where it was. Like there were a few places, they had more data, but they were like, no, it's difficult. We can't give it to you. Like, that's sad. So it ended up being a hackathon with my data only, wow. Which was an interesting experience, but kind of a pity of all the resources that are available. So I thought, well, patients have the key to all this data that is locked up everywhere. So why not build a platform for patients to sort of chip in, give the key to us, and then we get the data for them and put it in a central place. And we can work with multiple partners. You want the data to be able to evolve, and you want it to be able to be reused. It's like that's what they're doing now with rockets, right? They're reusing the rockets. We want to reuse the data.
Great.
So RDMD is focusing on medical data, natural history studies. And
beautiful.
Great. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Anna.
We're certainly going to dig into that a little more, but Nina, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what brings you to this stage today?
So I come from Dubai, as you mentioned. Not everybody owns a yacht. So I was diagnosed with a rare skeletal disease. It's called Jansen's metaphyseal chondrodysplasia. I was diagnosed at 32 when I had my second son. And my first son didn't show signs of the disease at the time. And then I had my second son, and that's when we got a diagnosis because he showed very clear symptoms. Jansen's is one of those very ultra rare diseases. When we got diagnosed, there were only 30 known cases in the textbook since the discovery of the disease. Right now, there are 8 patients in our registry alive, and me and my boys formed 3 of them. So when we got the diagnosis, we moved from Dubai. We gave up our jobs and our lives there, very lush and quite rich life, as you pointed out, to come here and learn about drug development. My husband is from Nebraska, so we ended up in Nebraska.
So kind of like Katie. Not a whole lot to talk about there.
Idaho, I think, is better than Nebraska. But yes, it was quite a shock, Nebraska, and then the drug development process. But yeah, so we came here 2015. So I was at the time, I had already lived my life knowing what this disease was doing. I just didn't have a name to the condition. And so I didn't really understand all the nuances of it. It turns out I was mosaic for my disease, which we only recently found out, which is why I was not diagnosed early on. So I lived with a misdiagnosis pretty much for 32 years. No biggie. So, and then you come here and then you realize that it is much more intense than you thought. And so we set up a foundation in 2017. When we were coming to the US, we had absolutely no knowledge of what we were going to do. But I did know that there was one researcher, one paper that I had read somewhere, and it mentioned one line that said, we could probably turn the active PTH receptor off by a ligand. And I'm like, highlighted it, printed it out, wrote to him, and I said, we're coming to the US. And he wrote back in 2015, and I still keep the email. I've printed it and I framed it because he wrote, "There are no ligands to treat you and your children right now." Fast forward 2019, and we are at the brink of an NDA for treatment for our disease.
Woo.
So shameless plug, tomorrow I'm doing a session. So I'm talking about how to do all what I just did in less than, 2 years?
All right, beautiful. Thank you, Nina.
Yep.
That's wonderful.
I think that speaks volumes to the title of our session today. Just in the last 4 years, I guarantee you she's had some limits to push or challenge that we haven't even touched on yet.
Nope. I don't even want to start.
All right, Katie, let's hear your story.
So my name is Katie Stevens. I'm from Montana originally.
Oh, even better.
No, get bigger. I live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, up by the Canadian border. Oh, yes.
All three people are
I
here.
know. That's the entire population of Idaho showed up today. So.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
sorry.
So be sure to vote. So my son, Riley, he is 18. He graduated high school this year. He's doing very well. But 6 years ago, we found ourselves, having a sandwich at Costco, waiting for some results from a blood draw that nobody seemed to, put any in. I didn't know, that it was an important blood draw. I started to notice he was changing color. I called the doctor and said, he's blue around the mouth. They said they didn't pull a platelet. Could we get to the emergency room? So here we go from, watching my 12-year-old eating a sandwich at Costco to you're on the oncology hematology floor 6 hours later, and life stopped. So in that time frame, we were lucky enough to have a curious hematologist because Riley wasn't responding to frontline treatment. He had 2 siblings at the time that weren't matches for a bone marrow transplant. I ended up having a third during that time, or fourth baby during that time, who wasn't a sibling match either. So they ran a telomere length test, and what kind of sets us apart in this crowd is the telomeres is the underlying condition, and we currently have 15 associated genes with the disorder. So it can be a very, very different journey for each patient. Riley is an anomaly in the community. He's doing very well. So I'm in a position where I understand the science, I have the connection of the researchers, but I don't have to be a full-time caregiver, so I get to be a caregiver to our community. So.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Katie. And before we move on, just briefly, if you could tell us about Team Telomere and your role at Team Telomere.
So I am also the executive director of Team Telomere. I took over 3 years ago when it was dyskeratosis congenita outreach. We did a marketing name brand change and have seen some pretty powerful growth from that. And yeah, I love my job. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll go backwards too, Katie. Would you mind giving us a real quick overview of how telomere conditions affect day-to-day living, and then we'll go down the line, day-to-day impact on just getting through a day.
Yeah.
What does that look like for a telomere?
So it was interesting because with telomere biology disorders, everybody presents at different times in different phases. Bone marrow failure is 80% of patients experience bone marrow failure, but in the adult population, you're dealing with the idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. So it's a whole broad range of little babies all the way up to people in their 60s being diagnosed. I did an interview with Horizon today, and they asked about my transition when I said that I wasn't a caregiver anymore, that I was an executive director now. And they said, what can you tell your community about transition? And there was a very real moment where I had to say, people in our community don't transition. There isn't an answer, there isn't a cure, there isn't a, we're gonna find this, we're gonna get better, and we're gonna leave it behind like Katie was able to do. So I'm very, I honor that because day-to-day life is not easy for our community, and I'm fighting very hard for those day-to-day wins for them.
Thank you for that. Nina, how is Jansen's day-to-day for you?
It's an interesting question. And just at the outset, I think this was something we were just talking about in the room. No, I'm not going to say all that. But you know, everybody living with a rare disease, each rare disease to them is significant and challenging, right? I don't think any one disease is any less important, or, you know, somebody told me a few months back that your disease is not impactful. And I had to go back and think about it. What do you mean by that? Impactful in what way? Because it doesn't affect more than 8 patients, or that it doesn't cause quick death, or it's not disabling enough? So what does impactful mean? For me, day-to-day life is looking at my boys, knowing very well what they're going through, because I've gone through it. I feel their pain 10 times. So I know the journey very well. I spent all my life in a hospital growing up. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. But I had a long journey from Nebraska. But my boys have had surgery every year since 2015. Every year they've learned to re-walk. Every year they've lost the ability to walk. So I think, and they're 8 and 11. You know, at that age, as everyone in this room knows, and you know, it doesn't affect them mentally. So they have to live with, you know, asking questions all the time. And you know, we as parents are very strong. We give them the support. But somebody asked me the other day, would you take it away if you had the chance to? And I said, yes, in a heartbeat. Does that mean I don't love them the way they are? Heck no, I love them. But it is something that is taking away certain qualities of life that they cannot enjoy. You know, my son wants to, you know, he wants to play basketball. He can't. He wants to be able to run on the track and field, but the coach thinks he should be sitting inside. So there's a lot that comes with this disease that sometimes gets compartmentalized in the fact that it's not impactful enough, or it's not debilitating enough. It damn well is. You know, it's taking away a lot of their abilities. So day-to-day life, as Katie said, is hard. It's hard watching them go through that. Yeah.
I think you touch on a really powerful point that all of us feel, is that no one's disease is more or less impactful or debilitating, whatever word you want to use. And that's what brings us all together, is we understand that, right? That no one in here is more important or less important than anyone else.
And just the very nature of rare disease, the nuances of the way the gene manifests, like the phenotype and how it manifests. So within the same subset of a group, I don't think we can compare either. Like my child may be doing this, but somebody else's child is not. I don't think we should be at that point where we're trying to compare, because that just makes it even more challenging.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Nina. All right, Anna. Yeah, let's hear it for Nina.
Hey, Nebraska!
Anna, what do you think? What's everyday life like with NF2?
Yeah, first of all, I would fully agree with what Nina just said. Not to compare like yourself with other people, like, you know, do I have it worse? Do they have it worse? Like, it's completely irrelevant. Yeah, because and it's not only the physical state you're in, but it's also the mental state, and that can also be very different from person to person. I think for me, I mean, on one hand, I feel I'm the same person before and after diagnosis. Nothing changed. I'm doing what I always did. I'm working on different problems now, and those problems are more. They are, I mean, not necessarily more interesting to work on, but these are kinds of problems that really affect people's lives, and I'm actually very honored and then feel very blessed that I'm able to work on them right now. And this is something I wouldn't have been able to do if I wouldn't have had this condition.
Yeah.
I think from NF2 patients, talking to them, what I hear a lot is there is always this uncertainty. When am I going to lose this other thing? My other ear, facial paralysis that you might have, or some spinal tumor that presses on a spinal cord. Like every time you get an MRI scan, I get one every 3 months. Something else may come up, right? And that it is really that uncertainty that you have to deal with. And at the same time, like the way I deal with it, I would just want to, live. I want to live to the fullest, like today, right?
Yeah.
In the light of potentially losing my hearing, for example, I started singing because I always wanted to do it. And I was like, I have to get over my shame and I have to do it right now because I might not be able to do it later. But then other people are doing the opposite. They're like, to your point earlier, they're trying to do something now that they can keep doing. And this is a personal preference, but I'm in camp A. I'm just doing the things I want to do and right now. And then we'll see. We'll see what tomorrow holds.
I love it.
So you've learned how to sing?
Well, I am in the process.
Perfect, because we worked in the scales. We'd love to hear from you. The a cappella floor is yours if you'd like.
Well, so maybe next year.
All right.
Invite me.
No, it's.
Thank you.
I mean, I love it. I really love doing it, and I just appreciate the acoustic ear that we have, like in a very, very different way in the light of losing it. And I wish I would have actually appreciated it that way before I got this problem. So, and it's hard to transfer that experience. I'm sure you have the same experience in a
I think everyone in here probably had a similar experience like that, where we appreciate a lot about our lives that maybe we took for granted before.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nina, I want to circle back with you. You talk about raising your 2 boys now, and obviously this is something that you've, like I said, you've lived this journey your whole life. Can you think back to your childhood and maybe talk for a moment about how your parents raised you, how they got you through the first 30 years of life, or 18, or whatever it may be?
I was a very difficult child.
Yeah, I believe it.
No.
We're curious how them raising you, or how you were raised, has maybe shaped the way you're raising your boys.
So I think it's really interesting because so my parents are from South India. I grew up in Dubai. It's a Muslim country. They never recognized students with disability. They were segregated. In fact, till very recently, they have been. They went to separate schools. And my father insisted I would go to a regular school because he said, there's nothing wrong with her, and she's going to get an education. And so he carried me 2 flights of stairs every day to sit in the classroom. And after surgery, he would carry me to school too. There was no Google. And there was no Global Genes, there was no NORD, and there was no support group. There was no online social support. There was nothing. I mean, and my mom, she didn't speak English. She was learning as we went to school. And she had no idea how to care for this child who she didn't know what was wrong. Her family was completely healthy. My father was completely healthy. And so they never had any idea. But the one thing they did, and I'm so grateful for, is they just saw me as one of the other two siblings. I have 3 in my family, so I have 2 boys, so I grew up with them. And so they treated me like they would them. And so I think, I roughed it out. I had my crutches. I'd go out and play cricket. Yes, we played cricket. And I have no idea what football was until I came to America. And so I think there's just a huge change in how we support people with rare disease now. And, when my father came down to visit us, and, of course they were devastated that the grandchildren had the same condition. But, at the back of my mind, he always told me, you turned out fine. They'll be fine too. Mm-hmm. And this was before we actually had a diagnosis or knew what was happening to them. And even after that, he said, oh, you'll find a cure. I know you will do it. And so he had that confidence in me. The very fact that he saw limitations around me, but never acknowledged them somehow, whether it was cultural or whether it was just his personality, I really can't tell. Maybe a combination of both. But I'm very thankful for how they raised me, because I'm standing tall today because of them.
So, Katie, we're talking a little bit about parenting. We want to know what you've learned as the parent of a rare disease child. Yeah, boil it down into a few sentences.
Just a few sentences here. We'll go write a book later. First of all, he's been a preteen or teenager through most of his events in life. So we had those challenges. He went from a pretty, healthy, robust kid to somebody who was suddenly isolated 3 years from school and friends, and we couldn't have people over. And, there was a day when Riley wanted to go to the grocery store with me, and he didn't want to wear his mask because his immune system was compromised, and he couldn't, the theory was, which I bucked the system on the mask eventually, but, you're afraid. Your child's life is in the air, essentially. He didn't have white blood cells, so he could get infection easily. He didn't have red blood cells, so he would tire easily. He didn't have platelets, so anything could make him hemorrhage. A bad sneeze could make him hemorrhage. So Riley wanted to go to the grocery store with me, and he just fought me on wearing this mask. And I remember saying, you think you can do some of these things, Riley, and you just can't. And I paused and I was like, I just turned into Marlin from Nemo. And it was like a real check me moment, right? He still has life. It's different. It's not the life that we planned for him. Not that it ever is, but this was a real derailment. And so we started to live in the moment. And I remember I would say to him, he'd get very overwhelmed with the idea of, I'm never going to get to ring the treatment bell, when they are done with treatment, because he was never going to be fixed. And I said, you know what? All we have to do today is get platelets. That's our only job. And so we just took every day and every moment, and that sounds so cliche, but you take it all on in the giant picture, it is too much. And there's some peace in just living right in the moment.
Yeah, so you answered part of my next question.
Oh, sorry. Hi.
No, really good. I think all of us balance our hope for a treatment or a cure with living in the moment, right? Mm-hmm. And that's part of what you're talking about. And maybe can your role is executive director of Team Telomere that's going to cure a disease, right? Can you talk about that conflict sometimes. You know, you only have so much time, so much energy in life. How do you make the moment good and also, you know, hope for the future and work towards something?
So Team Telomere does something called the Care Package Program. And with as rare as it is, finding people in your own community can be next to impossible. So we do a care package program. And at first I thought, oh, the care package program is really nice. You know, give people a blanket, you give them the clinical guidelines. And I was very focused on we have to find a cure, we need to accelerate treatments or research. And one of our care packages went out to a little boy named Ryan, who was 14 and had already had a bone marrow transplant. And he had made the decision at 14 to not go further with treatment. He didn't want a lung transplant. I said we probably need to get the care package there sooner than later. The care package got there. His mom laid out the blanket, and Ryan smiled, and he passed away 24 hours later. And the feedback, we're close. And she said, you gifted me my child's last smile on this earth. There's a moment where you have to decide to live just for today, and the hope is there. And yes, you want a cure, but Riley's watching his friends die around him, right? And I have to make today as good as it can be for as many people as I can, and that's where I am with that.
You know, I've heard that story before. We had the privilege of interviewing Katie a long time ago, episode 36, if you ever want to find that. And she shared bits of the same story, and what I appreciate about hearing that story even more than once, it's very much yours, it's very much Ryan's and Ryan's mom. But I think it's moments like that, stories like this, that remind everybody in this room and everybody online why we do what we do, why we show up every day, and we get involved in the process because there's so much work ahead of us. We have the priority of making today count, but we also have the mission to make many more days available. Exactly. So I love hearing that story, and I so appreciate you sharing. I know you talked about your whole life growing up. You wanted to solve problems. You know, I wish life were that easy. You know, we get a problem, we fix it. It's just like make it go away or change it, right? But we all know, especially in the world of research or science, you can't just flip a switch sometimes. It's not that easy. So can you tell us a little bit about how you've taken on this mentality of I want to solve problems into the world of science and advancement in medicine?
So it's a really, really interesting topic, I think. There's a few things. I think in design and architecture, you're also getting trained to solve complex problems without a lot of context. And I think, just referring to that, the first thing is to not be afraid of the problem, but be curious about it and get more intimate with it. And in design, designers know that understanding the problem is you're 80% there. Like if you really deeply understand the problem. So I think a lot of what we all do is problem solving, but understanding the problem is a really big part of it. Of course, I didn't know anything about the healthcare space or drug development, so for me that was completely new. And I was lucky to have friends that were in genetics, I could ask questions and I could ask stupid questions. I think that's also really important to go and share your ideas. Like my surgeon it's a funny story. When I first met him, he gave me his cell phone and he told me, you can call me anytime you want. And he was sort of a celebrity surgeon in the field. I was really surprised. And one day I used that opportunity. I called him because I had a dream about a surgical tool that could remove my tumor. And I was like doubting, should I share this with him or not? And I decided to do it, and I shared it. And he said, oh, that's interesting, because the founder of their clinic came up with the same device, and they, like decades ago, they used it and they moved on to something else. But it gave me sort of a nudge of confidence, like, yeah, you should share your ideas. Like, maybe it's not stupid, you don't know. And I think as patients, like, you care about the problem very intimately, like most of the time more than the researchers, right?
Sure.
You're the one with the problem, and by asking researchers the right questions, you can really also have them think and make them think about something. What would you do? Like, I was earlier having a discussion with someone, but you can really ask them, what would you do if your son had this problem? What would you work on? And they might say something interesting. I've seen it a few times where they were actually, yeah, I wouldn't do that, what you're working on. I would do this. Okay, thank you. So, like, really, I encourage everyone to use the curiosity to approach the problem and to get intimate with it.
Awesome.
We know sometimes we all struggle with with accepting the reality of a diagnosis or prognosis, whatever you're up against, while also trying to identify our purpose in life at times. So when we were preparing for this, you told us a story. One of your mentor friends helped you kind of reroute your purpose. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, I can. As I mentioned, I came to San Francisco with a startup. It was a tech startup, not related to healthcare. And one of the reasons we came to San Francisco is we had Ashton Kutcher involved. So he was one of our investors and supporters of what we were building. And I remember at some point after my diagnosis, like having to catch up with him, and I came to the studio. We were meeting in his dressing room. He was recording some series, and I was showing him something new that we were building, and I was really excited about it. And we talked about it. We brainstormed, and then he also asked me, "So how's your health?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm doing the sequencing thing and organizing a hackathon." And then after that, he was like, "Dude, you sound so much more excited about this healthcare stuff. Like, why don't you just close the shop and just spend do that instead?" And he was one of the ones that, one of the people that, or the first people that called me out on it. And it was really cool. Like, I think that he said that because he had an interest in the other company, not in my health, right? But he said it anyway. So I thought that was really, really great. And after that, even with all the unknowns, I felt more sort of inclined. Okay, maybe I should go into the healthcare stuff and spend more of my time there.
Yeah, I think we're all so focused on what's in front of us, right? And what we need to do. Sometimes it takes that outside voice to be like, look at the bigger picture. I think you maybe should go this direction.
And an outside, probably I would imagine an outside voice sometimes gives us that nudge or that confidence we need, that redirection, if you will. Or maybe they just plant a new idea or a seed.
Absolutely. Yeah. And at the time, I really didn't know what I was doing. Like, I was doing the sequencing, but I was like learning and exploring as I was actually doing the research. And sometimes we need a little push.
How many of us can maybe agree we have no idea what we're doing? I'm up here right now and I have no idea what I'm doing.
So we believe that community is the biggest part of confronting our rare disease. We were talking about the slogan, "We tackle rare" earlier, right? Uplifting athletes, and we tackle it together. And we want to know what value you find in your life by coming to events like this, like Global Genes, and connecting with other people. And
Is
Katie.
that for me?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Katie, we're going to start with you.
Hang on, Kyle. Oh gosh. All right. So at first, when I came to Global Genes, I think 3 years ago, it really was, I didn't know what the hell I was doing at all. Like, you know, I just took over an organization and I had no experience. I mean, I had always like done MS walks and leukemia, lymphoma, and like I had a natural desire to help, right? But Global Genes was the first place where I was like, oh, I can gain an education. And at first I was shy and intimidated and a little bit like I don't belong, not just that, you know, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't belong here. All these people seem to know what they're doing. And I just stuck with it. And I really look forward to meeting the community. I mean, Kyle and I have rode bikes together, and he helped with the $1 Million Bike Ride and the podcast, and Sean's hiked with my son and my husband with his determinants. And I'm getting to know, I've known Nina on social media, and I'm so inspired by her, and now we're friends. And so, you know, it's just this whole, like, we're rare, but we're not unique. We all share essentially the same story, right? So that's what it means to me, is just that camaraderie where you can talk and sometimes laugh about inappropriate things. Nobody judges you too harshly. So, yeah. So
I love
it's
it.
Good.
Beautiful. All right, Nina, what do you think about this conference, about Global Genes getting together with the community?
So this is my first Global Genes Summit.
I know, they are on stage.
Stop.
Sorry.
And so, you know, for somebody in a wheelchair, I have to talk about this, sorry. For somebody in a wheelchair, it's so hard to come to different events. So my online world is really my community. And so I have found, you know, every time somebody tweets out something I've tweeted, when Andra got on Twitter, I was ecstatic. You know, Marnie, when she says, dude, I feel your pain, I completely feel she understands what I'm saying. When Kathy came and gave me a hug, we've only met one other time, but now we're all headed for drinks. So I'm like, you know, so this is the community. Even if you can't come to these events, if you have those limits, and these are real limits, you know, let's be real. I mean, I can't jump on a plane each time and come out, but the fact is you can still connect, and that's something that has changed so much of our world. Being able to just put it out there, say, hey, has anyone dealt with this? You know, do you have a contact for the FDA? And then, you know, I had like 10 people inboxing me saying, you know, contact this person. Yeah, and I met Crystal just at Boston, and I'm in love with her. And she's amazing. Please, just, you know, completely, she knows too much, and we really need to pick her brains. And I think the fact is, in this community, there's so many warriors in terms of knowledge and resources that you really need to connect with them to be able to lift each other up. So it doesn't really matter whether you can attend, because everybody feels like we have to attend every single conference. And it's not like that. I do most of my work at home in Nebraska. So, and I still get the work done.
Nice.
So.
You have internet there?
Very good internet. How's Idaho?
You have to crank the internet at ours.
Nice. All right, Anno, we only have a couple minutes left, but we want to hear from you about what you think about connecting with the community of Global Genes.
Yeah, last year was my first year, and I think for everybody that is diagnosed with a rare disease, it can feel pretty isolating, right? Because You think, I'm the only one with this problem. I don't know anyone else. And then you meet the first patients like yourself, and you think, there are a few people that have the same. And then you come here, like, everybody has a rare disease, right? That was really a fascinating experience. Everybody has another one, and everybody has other problems, but you can also relate to something common. And I think it's really important, like, we as a community, we need to make rare diseases big, like, in order to get more attention for them. And we need to find synergies between the different diseases, because I think that can attract more resources to it. We can learn from each other's mistakes. I think this is also an undervalued thing, like all the mistakes we made. Nobody likes to talk about it. But it's so important, like, to share those experiences too, so we don't make the same mistakes twice.
We need a list of who not to contact.
You're going to make that list, eh?
I already have it, like, dartboard.
I hope we're not on that
No.
Can you share that list?
Yeah. It should be nationally available, really.
Katie, what I hear you saying is we need to learn to live in the moment. And I absolutely love that. Nina, I think your message is don't take no for an answer. Just keep working at it.
Get a good lawyer.
Yeah, get a good lawyer. Love it. I love how you see things objectively. There's so many issues and challenges that we have to solve, and we have to take it one step at a time and do it right and do it objectively. So thank you for that perspective.
I think the ultimate challenge that we're all going to have is remembering and being intentional about living in the moment while also getting stuff done. I made a fool of myself earlier because I got excited in a moment, and well, it was awkward, but whatever. I'm going home and I don't care what you people think of me. Because ultimately, when I walk away and I stand here, I chat with you on the breaks, I understand that we're all making the most of what we have, and we're all putting our best effort forward, and that's what's going to make life better for our boys or for our families or the people that we're connecting with. And at the end of the day, we're all rare. We all have a similar story, but the only way we're going to beat any one of these conditions is if we're doing it together. So I absolutely believe in the purpose of events like this, and I'm so honored that you three joined us on stage, honored to be a part of the Global Genes Patient Advocacy Summit, and honored that you all have sat here for a good 45 minutes or so listening to us. Thank you very, very much. We'd encourage you to connect with each of us.
Weren't those panelists great? Check out the show notes at twodisabled.dudes.com to connect with them on social media. We had such a great time at the 2019 Global Gene Summit. As you're planning for 2020, we recommend you put that one on your calendar. Check out globalgenes.org for details.
Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast.
Find us online at twodisabled.dudes.com and please subscribe on the iTunes. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And special thanks to our audio producer, Jake Tompkins.
Until next time, keep living with urgency.